Hello everybody, my name is Henry Tenby and I'd like to welcome you all to this edition of Model Moment. It's been a while since we last spoke. The summer was a good one for me. I hope you have also had a great summer and perhaps you've acquired or refinished some travel agent display models for your collection. I've been really busy with these Fokker F-28 models, which I'm going to tell you about in this video. But for those of you that don't know me, my name is Henry Tenby. I am the author of the Aircraft Display Model Collector, Investor, and Appraisal Guide. It is a 162-page all-color book on the collecting of professional aircraft display models and the values of these models. And you can purchase this guide and get more information about it on my website, which is linked in the upper right-hand corner. If you're interested, please do check it out. So some of you may remember one of my earlier videos of Model Moment in which I showcased the Verkuyl line of models, in particular the Verkuyl Fokker F-28 series of models that were produced in the 1960s and 1970s and into the 1980s as promo pieces for Fokker to sell their Fokker 28s internationally to airlines and prospective airlines, and the models were produced in quite large numbers. Some of you may remember those F-28s were all orange. They were in the orange Fokker livery that was famous in the 1970s. And in my video, which I've actually linked in the upper right-hand corner, you may wish to check it out to refresh your memory. In my video, I presented these models, and they're beautiful models. They are beautifully made, they look fantastic, but they're quite common because it's the Fokker House livery that was produced in such large numbers. I believe thousands of those models were produced over their 3 or 4 decade production span. And my point was that they were a lot more valuable in liveries of airlines as opposed to in liveries of the manufacturer. So that's what these are. These are the 1/72nd Verkuyl Fokker model in cast aluminum and metal. And what you're looking at here in front of me are actually, these are the exact same 4 house livery models that you saw in that earlier video. A lot of you have asked what's involved in refinishing a model. So it's a nice, warm, sunny and I am now refurbishing them, restoring them back into airline livery. There's a lot more value in these models in airline livery, but there's a major, serious labor component that goes into converting these models into their glorious airline liveries from years back. So this is how I spent part of my summer. I stripped these models. It was a terrific process. And I'm going to basically explain to you what it was all about. So what we have here in front of us, there are 4 F-28s. Again, they were all the orange livery models, and you may not be able to see it initially, but they're in slightly different variations. As you may remember, I have a large collection of original Verkuyl decals for airline liveries from the 1960s and 70s that are going to go onto these models to make them a lot more interesting. So each one of them has its own unique difference. So we can start with this one actually. This particular model is It has a silver belly and silver wings. Now, not all of the Fokker models, all of the Fokker F-28 models had silver. Only the very early models from the 1960s and I guess perhaps the early 70s that were done up as demos for airlines featured the silver underside. So this model has the silver underside. I'm not going to reveal the airline liveries at this moment, but I will later in the video as to which airlines will take deliveries of these aircraft, but maybe you can guess. So this is our first one. This is the silver belly. Then we have two, what I call, these are brown gray schemes. So you've got gray can be two different versions. Well, it can be many different versions, but for Fokker, what I've noticed, you've either got a gray, which is based on like a lighter black, and then you've got a gray based on a verging on green, yellow, brown, and that's what these two models are, this one here and this one here. So they're different though. They may look very similar, and they are very similar, but there is a difference between them. We've got the cheat line, or we've got the paint demarcation line running just underneath the engine pylon mount at mid-fuselage. Of course, it'd be very difficult to guess what livery this is for, but you might like to take a guess based on the decals that I presented in the video earlier this year. So this is the purebred model in that it's all white up top. We've got the brown gray underneath. And then this one here, which I'll show you now, we've got, it's the exact same gray underneath, the brownish, I call it brownish, yellowish gray. But we've got a detail here on the, as you can see on the top here. So we've got a blue fin detail, which is kind of neat there. And it's going to be really neat when this model's painted. I'm really looking forward to it. Can anybody guess what livery this is going to be? It would be, again, perhaps one of the decals I presented to you in my earlier video. And our last of the four is this beauty here. This one is also mid-livery. The cheat line runs mid-fuselage, just underneath the engine pylon mount line around the fuselage, but the gray is different. It's not a brown gray. You can see the difference between the two grays here. This is the brown gray. This is more a gray, meaning I would call it's a reduced black add into the gray, which kind of gives it that charcoal look. It's a charcoal gray. So it's a bit different, and be very difficult to guess what airline or operator, I should say. There's a hint. It's not an airline. Which operator this particular aircraft is going to be delivered to. So some of you are probably wondering what goes into making these conversions from the Fokker house livery over to these airline liveries, and it is an awful lot of work. First of all, the models have to be sanded clean, basically right down to almost to the primer. The liveries have to come off. You cannot just paint on top of the existing liveries. And why is that? Because when you put a oil or alkyd or most paints on top of another livery, like a decal, even if that decal's been in place for the last 50 years, there will be a chemical reaction. Not only will you be able to see the visible livery underneath, you'll be able to actually read the airline name underneath the paint, but you may have a very ugly chemical reaction which would detract very significantly from the model. So the decals have to be wet sanded off. So I sit in the backyard and I get the hose out and I get my sandpaper out, and on a nice sunny hot summer afternoon I'll spend hours basically sanding these models down, getting that livery, getting that orange. Most of the orange paint comes off as well. The orange paint will bleed through if you're doing a white respray. So it's even with primer, it will bleed through. It's a pain in the ghoulies. It's a proper pain in the backside, reducing that Fokker livery and getting it off these models. Huge labor component in just stripping the models and preparing them for paint and primer and paint. So understand that when these models are finished and completed in their airline liveries, there's a major investment, because just the models themselves are going to value in the Fokker livery probably in the $300 range, plus shipping. And if you're in Canada, plus taxes. So you're up to over $400 just for the model. Then when you start adding in the hours and hours of labor, of course, when these models are finished into their glorious airline liveries, they become several $100 models. And I hope you'll appreciate that from this video as we proceed to present the models once they've been finally restored into their glorious airline liveries. Stand by, we've got more coming up after the break. I'm also a collector of 35mm color slides of aircraft. If you have an aircraft slide collection that you'd like to dispose of or sell or get rid of, I'd love to hear from you. Please feel free to contact me at my email address, which is shown on the screen. That's henrytenby@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you about your slide collection. Well, it's been a long journey. It's been a hard journey, but it's been a rewarding journey. Welcome to the big reveal party. I'm going to share with you what I've been able to accomplish with these Verkuyl F-28 models, and I hope you enjoy the proceedings. So let's get started. So as many of you know, Verkuyl made the F-28 in a number of scales. So I think it's only natural that we start with the smallest scale, which of course is the 1/100th scale. Most of the models that he produced during the 40 or 50 years for promotional purposes for the Fokker Aircraft Company were the 1/72nd metal and resin models. But these are the 1/100th scale models that were in the Fokker House livery that we saw earlier, and I've redone them as you've seen. So let's start with this model. This one here we'll concentrate on first. So this is a Fokker 28 1000, and I decided that the Scandinavian airline system scheme looked very sharp on this model, and it looks really cool. I believe SAS operated not too many, maybe only one or two F-28 1000s in the late 80s or early 1990s. I believe most of the S-28s that they inherited from Livery were Series 2000s. Some of you may wish to correct me on that and provide further details, but the 1000 certainly existed with SAS, but it was a short-lived and a rare machine. But again, I think it looks really cool. I like the F-28 wing detail lines on the tops of the wings, so I added those on this model, and of course we achieved the very high gloss finish using automotive or auto grade paint and clear coats, and this model is now set to be enjoyed for the next 50 years, hopefully in a problem-free environment because of the clear coat. Registration is SE David Goliath Apple, or DGA, and the airplane is named Elf Viking. Have a look, it's a nice model on the original Verkuyl stand, and as you know from my earlier portion of the video and previous videos, these models were produced in such large quantities in the Fokker House livery. It's my view that because their value is so low in the Fokker House livery, it made sense for me to invest the significant labor, time, and resources to refinish them and bring them into a more interesting color scheme. So what do you think? I welcome your opinion. Not everybody has to agree with me, but do you think it is a worthwhile venture to put the labor into refinishing these aircraft into actual airline liveries, of course, not fictional, but liveries that are, I would say, not represented very easily in the Fokker models, not easy to find. So that is a very nice model. It measures about, I guess, about 10 inches long, something like that. And it's looking really cool. So let's move on to the next example. So I decided to go with Air UK for the other F-28 1000 and 1/100 scale. It's also mounted on the original Verkuyl base. This is a one-off aircraft that actually existed also, I believe, in the mid to late 1980s, PHMOL, very famous registration. Fokker owned this aircraft, this particular ident, and they leased and rented the aircraft out to many operators over the decades of service. The airplane acted as a lease marketing tool for Fokker to introduce the F-28 to new airlines. So Air UK was one such airline. They operated this airplane for, I believe, just a year or two, I guess primarily between Europe and points in the United Kingdom. And this is the color scheme that the aircraft operated in. The registration was in fact exactly where you see it. And again, I decided to go for the wing treatment with the wing outlines because I think it looks better than just the standard gray color scheme. Now, some of you may have noticed the gray that I chose for this particular aircraft is different than the gray for the SAS. It's a bit darker. So I'll let you have a quick comparison of the two. I don't know if it shows up in the video, but this is the way I was able to determine the aircraft were actually painted on the shades of gray that I was able to see in the various photos that were available online. I think they both look good. I don't think one is better than the other per se. They're both sharp, and but I just wanted to point out that I did try to add a little bit of variety and detail to represent the accurate aircraft painting for the specific aircraft in question. So yeah, this is Air UK, and the metal stand is a slightly different version than this one. This is more of a diamond shape, or maybe you might call it a stone arrow shape, whereas this has a more, the Scandinavian is more of a round shape. This one here does not have any Fokker monogrammed lettering on it, whereas this one has the Fokker brand naming on the stand. So there's slight different variations. I don't know. They're both cool. I don't think, again, I like one better than the other, but they're certainly very, very cool. And I'm happy to say that this model also will last many generations, many decades, now that it's painted and clear coated with automotive and aerospace grade clear coats, which are advertised as being UV resistant. So the model should not yellow in the next several decades. And there's the underside of the model. And these models mount with a long pole, as you can see, as a mounting stand, and it goes in through the belly, and then the aircraft can be presented in whichever flight configuration, climb out, steep bank, however you like. I personally like displaying the aircraft like that so that the upper wing surfaces are visible. So these are the two 1/100th scale F-28s, and you saw them earlier in the Fokker house liveries. What do you think? Do you like them better in airline liveries, or do you like them better in the original Fokker house livery? Leave your comments. I look forward to hearing what you have to say. We'll move on to the 1/72nd scale models now. So first on deck is this Luftwaffe F-28. It's a very simple livery, but I like it because it's blue, and I just find it very, very attractive. There's not much really in the way of livery here. We've got a German flag on the tail. We've got the Fokker F-28 branding on the engine nacelles. The actual aircraft registration or call number, whatever you want to call it, 1701 is right there. Luftwaffe titles, and we've got the wraparound blue cheat line. It's not a very easy process putting these decals on. They're obviously, as I showed earlier, one strip, but these are 50-year-old decals. So when you put them in water, they're going to fall into pieces unless you know what you're doing, unless you take certain care to prepare them so that they can be applied safely. So I typically put Microsol Decal Restore Solution many coats on these decals, build it up, and then I cut the decals into sections, typically engine back, and then from engine to about here, and then the forward section. So I typically put them on in 3 pieces, match them up, and invariably there's going to be decal loss all the way along. Various pieces will fall off, flake off, crinkle up, have to be cut out. So once the decals are applied, you put an initial clear coat on, and then I go through. I've got to match the paint color exactly, otherwise it won't look very good. And I'll go and touch up all the little bits and pieces that came off. So when the model's clear coated at the very end of the build process, you cannot tell that this is a recovered sheet line that's been restored, and it looks like a complete uniform blue paint scheme all the way around the aircraft. And this is exactly how the aircraft would look when completed by Verkuyl back in the 1960s and 70s, because of course it is his decal. And I did not, on this particular airplane, do any current day wing definition as I did on the smaller models, just because Verkuyl did his own details with decals. He had, there's 3 wing flap decals there, or yeah, 1, 2, 3, it's actually 5 flaps on each side, there and there. And I wanted to preserve the authenticity of the Verkuyl decals. So on this one, I just kept it as is. And I also put the original Verkuyl manufacturer's decal on the underside of the starboard stab, as Verkuyl would do. So this model is now, again, ready to be displayed and enjoyed for the next 40 or 50 years. And I'm pleased with the result. I was initially questioning whether I was actually going to go with the Lufthansa scheme, because it is quite simple. And I like it. I like the blue. I think it's a cool scheme. What do you think? Do you think this was a wise decision? Do you agree that it was okay to go with the Luftwaffe scheme? When we're finishing these models, of course, I think about the resale potential, and you want to do a model that is going to be popular in the secondary market as it passes down from collector to collector. So there are certain airline liveries that I would not elect to do, but this isn't one of them. So yeah, there we go. That's our first F-28 model to present to you. And we'll move on to the second in the 1/72nd scale. So number 2 in the 1/72nd scale, of course, is this Martinair Holland Fokker F-28 PH-MAH on an original Verkuyl stand. This is actually an F-27 stand, but it is the exact same stand style that Verkuyl used for many of the aircraft models in the 1/72nd F-28 range and his DC-8 range as well. The 1/100th Verkuyl DC-8s were mounted on the same stands. He just changed the lettering. But I'm using it as a base for this model. Verkuyl made a good number of these Martinair F-28s. I love the livery, and I've never owned one. So I thought, yeah, it would be a great candidate to present as one of these redone models. And it is, for all intents and purposes, authentic, because it is an original Verkuyl F-28 in metal, as you can hear, and the original Verkuyl decals. And we've used, as I've said many times, aerospace grade clear coats and paints. These are not hobby paints. These are paints that are designed for actual aircraft operating in very extreme temperatures with high UV. So this model, in theory, should be able to endure the ravages of sitting in your collection inside your house for many, many decades and remain in beautiful presentation condition for a very, very long time. And Verkuy's models are beautifully shaped. I matched the color as best I could to photos of the actual aircraft, and there's 2 different types of F-28 logo treatment on the F-28. Some F-28s have it on the engines, and then they also had F-28 in the tail. And in later years, they used the letters F-28 number combo, as you can see there, F-28. But earlier aircraft in the 60s actually had the Anthony Fokker logo, the round logo in the back. But I decided to go with this version with the F-28 in the back, just to make it interesting and to add some variety. But of course, Martinair also had Fokker 28 spelled out underneath the forward fuselage windows right there. So this model turned out very, very nice, I think. It's an impressive, it's a nice color scheme. Now, something I decided to do a little bit different, just to see what it looked like, I used a window detail outline, not window detail, I guess it's a wing detail outline decal for the tops of the wings on this one, just to see what it looked like to compare to the Verkuyl the flap markings that he used. And I quite like this. I can't say I don't like it. I think it looks very cool. I think it's an acceptable modification or enhancement to the decals. You can have a look there. What do you think? Do you prefer just the little flap outlines from the earlier model, or do you prefer the full treatment? Curious to know what you think about that. Perhaps there's no right answer, as long as the model looks good, which it does. And then again, I've got the Verkuyl branding sticker on the underside of the starboard stab. So there you have it. This is the Martinair Holland F-28. These were in service, I believe, through the 70s, maybe until the early 1980s on their intra-European services. Good looking airplane. Yeah, very cool airplane. I've also got the Verkuyl. I've got a DC-10, I've got a DC-8, and now I've got the F-28. So what's missing? Not too much, actually. I mean, of course, the old props, yes, but there you have it. We'll move on to our next 1/72nd metal model from the F-28 work that I've done. And now we're moving into the realm of what I consider to be F-28 Exotica. These are decals that were produced by Verkuyl. I showed them earlier, and you may not agree, or you may agree that they're worth going on to the aircraft. They're aircraft that were never delivered. Verkuyl made models for Fokker as promotional and sales pieces, so that the aircraft salesman could say to the airlines, look, here's a model of what your airline's livery will look like on the F-28 if you so choose to order the F-28. I think these models are really fantastic. Some people don't collect them. They put them in the realm of fantasy models. But for me, as long as the color scheme looks good, the decals are applied properly, it's a real airline scheme, then in my books, it's a 10 out of 10. So here's the very first one. This is Trans-Australia. Fokker made a lot of inroads in selling their aircraft into Australia in the 1960s and 70s. Especially with their F-27s, lesser so with the F-28s. Ansett had the F-28s, but Trans-Australian Airlines went pretty much straight to the 727 and DC-9s. They never did order F-28s, although the aircraft sure would have looked cool if they did. I like this by the way is the 1970s, I believe early, maybe 1972, 73 era Trans-Australian Airlines DC-9 727 delivery scheme. So all the Boeings and Douglases were delivered in this scheme. And it's very attractive, and it's authentic to the scheme. The wingtip treatment is cool with the blue outlines, and they definitely did have, on the upper wing surfaces, they had the TAA, then they had the registration. And then on the underside, they also had the same TAA and the registration. I'm going to show you something, actually, which is very cool about this model, which I didn't know about until I actually started the restoration and decaling process. Oh, by the way, I did go with the Anthony Fokker style signature logo in the back here, as opposed to the F28. So, but we do have a very light colored F28 text on the engines. Not too noticeable, but it is there and looks kind of neat. Now, have a look at this. This is kind of neat. Look at this. We've got, I'm just checking what to double check. It says TAA, Trans-Australian Airlines. It's actually, the font is facing in the opposite direction to what's on the wing surfaces. Can you see that? This is right way, this is upside down, and this is right way. I couldn't believe it. It didn't make sense to me, but if you study pictures of Douglas DC-9s or 727s with this exact same livery, landing shots, you'll see that this is the treatment of the actual aircraft. They did them in opposite or facing perspectives, which I found really, really cool. I was going to apply them in the same line of access. And then I realized from the pictures through actually a fellow model collector in Australia that it is in fact facing as opposed to being on the same axis. So that's very, very cool. That's an interesting observation. So there you have it. Again, this sheet line was applied in 3 different pieces. There was the tail piece, there was a piece that came from here to the start of the engines, and then there was another piece that ran from the engines all the way to around the nose. So they really have to be installed, from my experience, in sections. Otherwise, you're gonna blow the installation, just because they're so fragile, these decals. They curl up, they require extra care, and there's not enough time to put them on in one piece without having the decal becoming destroyed. So there's the wrap around the nose. And what I did is I kept the wing flaps completely authentic to the decals, and I just installed the spoilers as the only above wing surface detail. So you can see the spoilers there. These are the actual Verkuyl decals that came with this decal set. So this is how Verkuyl intended to present the wing spoiler detail on the upper wing surfaces. He never did put decals, as far as I'm aware, on the underside. They're only scribed. So the model is cast, and then they used putty, I guess, to scribe detail, and that's all there. So this is the Trans-Australian rare livery. Again, aircraft was never delivered to the company, but I think it turned out very, very cool, and it certainly will be a collector's piece for the Australian airline fans that are out there. And we'll now move to one of our last models in the presentation, and some might say that I've saved the best for last. You tell me what you think. Well, if you're a fan of Las Vegas and you were in the 1960s traveling on the western coast runs of Bonanza Airlines, you have been flying on mostly F-27s. So in the early 1960s, Fokker engaged in a sales campaign to sell their F-28 jets to Bonanza Airlines. I believe the company was for a time based in Las Vegas, and Bonanza never did take delivery. They never ordered the F-28, but my God, does it ever look cool. What an amazing looking aircraft this is. I just love this scheme on the F-28. It's a 20 out of 10. In my view, I think this is the nicest of all the decals and all the schemes that I've presented today. No, it never operated. It is a fantasy scheme. It's a proposal scheme, but it's so attractive, and it has that really distinctive 1960s look to it that is just so cool. And I'm a fan of Las Vegas. I've been to Las Vegas so many times. Some of you may have been in the terminal building at Las Vegas, where they have a display of the Las Vegas airport history. And they've got a section within this display that is dedicated to Bonanza Airlines. And they actually have this model, Bonanza Airlines F-28 proposal model there. Of course, it's a 50-year-old model, and it's in pretty poor shape. If you go to my website, henrytenby.com, I've written an article in my report section in my blog about that museum, and you can see a picture of it. I'll see if I can upload a picture to the video, and you can tell me what you think. But it is a very handsome model. This decal, I am so amazed that I was able to actually get it to install properly, just because it is, I believe, the oldest of all the decals that I installed in this particular build series. The whole thing is decal. From here, like all the way down, even up here, the pieces on the upper top, that's a decal. So what I had to do, as per standard operating procedure, I had to cut the decal slice it into sections. So from here to the front, one section, separate section just over the engine nacelles. The wrap around here, that's all decal. It's not paint. Verkuyle's decals were so high quality, they were almost, I'm going to say, they were so thin that they could wrap around contours, and I've never seen that in other decals. Well, I shouldn't say never. It's rare to see. It's a super thin decal, and when you factor that it's 50 years old, you're dealing with something that is very, 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 very fragile. So it was like brain surgery get these decals to sit down, and it took a long time because I would install one, clear coat it, leave it. Then I'd move on to the next piece, clear coat it, leave it. Because you don't want to be handling the model with these decals being unclear coated, because there's lots of handling and you could remove the decals or damage them just by handling the decals while you're handling the new decal installation. So you have to be super, super careful. And so yeah, this is all decal wraparound. The tail is its decal, and then I cut the decal right at the stab line and then applied the final piece in as its own piece, but it didn't fit 100% perfect. So you've got to, of course, get the paint. You got to mix paint to match the red. It's not 100% red. There's a bit of orange in there, and it's got to match perfectly, otherwise it won't look good. So I had to use some paint to make that look absolutely perfect. And of course, because this model dates from probably the mid-60s, I'm going to say, I used the original, very old Fokker logo. This is not even, this is the one that preceded the Fokker logo inside the circle. And this is the Fokker branding that came with this decal. So we can see the evolution of the Fokker brand through these models. So this is probably, I'm going to say 1963, 4, 5, somewhere in that range. Whenever they first came out with the F-28 and they were marketing it. Maybe I'm a bit early on that. Maybe it was 66, 67. Some of you experts on the Fokker history and the F-28 history might want to chime in as to when you think this actual aircraft was promoted to Bonanza Airlines. I think Bonanza Airlines ceased to exist somewhere around 1964, 1965. I don't think they were operating in the latter 60s. So older model. But I really like the Fokker branding. It says friendship, fellowship right there on the nose. They didn't actually spell out Fokker 28 or F-28. They used the word fellowship, which is just so cool. And again, all part of the airline history and airline marketing history of these models. So yeah, have a look at that. Another observation some of you might have caught, what's different about this airplane to all the other F-28s that I've presented in this presentation? There's something that's completely different, and none of the other aircraft had it. Has anybody been able to catch it? I'm holding it right now. No, it's not the wing. The underside of the aircraft is not gray, it's silver. For whatever reason, this model and a number of the original Verkuyl models from the early or mid-1960s campaigns were painted silver. I'm not sure why that was. Maybe it was before the aircraft was actually constructed and they anticipated being able to deliver the aircraft with silver, when in fact most F-28s that I'm aware of were actually delivered in some form of gray for the underside. Maybe it was decided that the corrosion would be minimized if the lower section of the aircraft was painted as opposed to left with bare metal. Same for the stabs as well. In most F-28s, I believe they are painted. So yeah, there you have that. That is the Bonanza Airlines F-28. It's a very rare piece. How many models like this exist? I'm going to say probably a handful were made for presentation to Bonanza, probably less than 5. And thank God I was able to get this decal sheet and add one more to the supply of these here on planet Earth. But it's an extremely rare model. Definitely less than half a dozen of these exist. I don't think too many of them would have survived. We know about the one from Las Vegas. So yeah, this is rare. It's a beautiful model, and I hope you'll agree that my efforts were well worth putting forth so that this model could come into existence, and there would be one less house livery, which really doesn't matter because this model is a lot more important, more impressive, of more historical importance than a Fokker house livery model. But before we end, I do have one bonus F-28 to share with you. Another F-28 model from Fokker, metal 172nd on stand. This airline livery is Air Charter Noord, N-O-O-R-D, Noord, North, P-H-W-O-L is the registration on the aircraft. I was able to get these decals, and very lucky that I was able to get them successfully installed on the aircraft. This aircraft was refinished about a few months ahead of this last batch that I showed you. It was done as a one-off as opposed to an assembly line production. Tail was painted orange, and as much as you search, you won't find anything about this airline anywhere on the internet. So Google can't tell you about it. And if anybody knows about this airline, please let me know. P-H-W-O-L. Did the airline actually operate? Did they operate with F-28s? Did they exist? And when? I'm going to say it's a 1960s presentation piece, late 60s, or perhaps it's from the early 1970s. So if anybody has any information on Air Charter Noord, pardon my Dutch pronunciation, there's a Dutch flag right there, which is cool. I'd love to know, so please comment the video as to who you think this company is, and maybe provide a link to any website or historical information on the company. There you have it. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. If you have, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up, or 2 thumbs up if that's possible. And don't hesitate to leave comments. I love your comments. There's so much to discuss and share. We really enjoy speaking to fellow collectors, hearing from fellow collectors, people that have the same passion as me in these travel agent models. If you have any models that you'd like to sell or trade, please drop me a line. My email's on the screen. I'm always a cash buyer for vintage models of airliners. So if you have models that are properly thrashed, I'm a cash buyer of those models as well. Thank you for tuning into the video, and happy collecting. I'm wishing everybody a good collecting season this winter, and we'll see everybody on the next video. Hi there, my name is Henry Tenby. As you can see, I'm a lifelong dedicated aviation enthusiast, and I think you are as well. I've been interested in aviation and airlines and classic aircraft going back to when I was 3 years old. My first airport visits that I remember were in the summer of 1967. So vintage airliners, vintage propliners, those are all my areas of specialty and interest. I'm also very interested in aviation video. You're probably interested in aviation video too because you're here watching on YouTube. I started video filming aircraft in the late 1980s, and I've been digitizing old aviation movies and films from the 1950s for the last 20 years. If you're as passionate about aviation and video and film as much as I am, I'd like to invite you to try my new aviation streaming service that I created for fanatics just like us. It's called JetFlix TV. There are over 1,000 full-feature aviation videos and movies on JetFlix TV, which you can stream to your favorite device, and you get unlimited access to JetFlix TV for a very low price. We're talking less than the cost of a cup of coffee per month. At JetFlix TV, we have many categories of aviation films to satisfy every interest and passion, including Russian aircraft, classic propliners, classic jetliners, vintage post-war military aircraft, trip reports, airport reports, you name it, it's there. We digitized Air Canada's historic film archive, and we have the entire Air Canada, Trans-Canada Airlines film archive on JetFlix TV for you to enjoy, and that is dozens of films that I know that you're going to find absolutely fascinating. So there's a link in the upper right-hand corner of this film right now that you can click on, and it will take you to a page where you can sign up. You can enjoy the entire JetFlix TV platform, watch as much as you want, and decide if it's for you. We release new content on an ongoing basis, so be sure to sign up. For a year, 6 months, 1 year, whatever you like, you're going to enjoy it. I look forward to seeing you at JetFlix TV.